All right, here we go again. Buckle up. So, the idea is this. We have the amnesty process. 90-something% of the amnesty applications are denied at the end result after how many years. So that would, if you're some sort of person that's looking at the program, you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat to figure it out. Yeah. That's way too high, which means people are getting in to apply for amnesty that never qualified. And what that's doing is it's ruining our chances of a legitimate, organized, and accountable work visa program. So what that tells us is that we have to look at that initial interview and scrutinize it better, because there's no way that failure rate should be 90-something%. I think it's like 96 or 98. I mean, something like 30% would even be acceptable. 30 to 40% failure, but anything over that, that's way too far. Even that could be questioned, but again, shit happens. So what? I'm not telling you that the administration is being fair. I have no idea what they're doing because I'm not there. But what would need to be done is you need to audit the program. You have to start looking at these applications. And again, you can tell based upon historical approvals and denials whether there's a valid case. Now, I don't know if the administration is just saying nobody has a case, but if that becomes the truth, then they went the other direction the wrong way. And the courts will spank them. Because if somebody brings before the court a case that's valid that you denied, and the court probably won't say it with one case, because again, shit happens. I mean, they'll say something about it, but if they see a pattern of behavior, a pattern of activity that's denying lawful amnesty cases, which are probably few and far between, it will start, ruling against the administration. So again, the key is just be honest. You can't cancel all amnesty applications. I mean, you can, but again, if they start looking at them, which I'm sure they're looking at them, right, lawyers are already complaining about them. But again, most cases are, I make $5 an hour here and I need $10 an hour to feed my family. That's not an amnesty case. That's a work visa case. Right. So, but see how the overage of amnesty cases has killed the work visa program. Biden didn't even run the right. I mean, Biden's letting them in and not giving work visas. Biden should have kept them from coming in and issued work visas. But again, if he does it that way, that's fine as long as he manages it, which he didn't manage it. Meaning that he could have gave kind of pseudo work visas, which he did, but he has to make sure that you got to make sure that everybody's real and everybody's getting, everybody's going to work. Again, if you're disabled, I understand it. And there's probably more of an amnesty case from a disabled person than somebody else. Right? If they're experiencing something in their homeland, they happen to be disabled, then that's probably a reason that we should, try to help them. As far as amnesty is like kind of the spirit of America type of thing. It's not, what can you do for my nation? I know that's where the president is with a lot of this. But again, we do have some reason to take people that need amnesty, that are, disabled or something like that. Again, like the kids that are getting surgery. That's a kind of a hallmark of our nation. And traditionally, Arabic people coming into our nation for surgery or prosthetics or something like that, medical treatment, are not the major source of terrorism, if at all. I mean, I have never heard that that's where it came from. So there's no genius in that. Right. I mean, yeah, 1 to 1 in a million. But again, if you scrutinize and vet, then you don't have trouble. You don't have trouble then. I mean, you know who's coming in. Right. I would have never stopped the program. That's insane. The other countries are laughing at us. Right. So again, what you have to be careful of is the reverse, where you have a valid amnesty case and you're not letting it get to the judge. Because when they start discussing, they may even have a folder of it. We don't know. They could have like 100 cases or 20 cases. I don't know what the number would be, but they have cases that they suspect, were good amnesty cases. Again, just because you're not being confronted by lawyers doesn't mean that they're not moving, and because they want to blindside you when you least expect it. Like you get to an election for Virginia or something, all of a sudden, boom, you get hit with that. It may not harm you that much in your governor election in Virginia, but it's going to depower you if the court finds something. Again, it's a weird world, but the government or the judges are spanking you, and sometimes the spank sticks, and then you depower. Thank you, Larry. And then you have problems and other because you can't, but you're like I said, you just keep government agents. On one hand, government agents have protection from being prosecuted or fired for a prosecution. Now, you've kind of cornered the market on the checks and balances, which might. There is a judge down the road that might rule something in relation to that. Like I said that with Biden's amnesty. Because at a certain point, he's thwarting checks and balances. And again, the same thing, you could say the same thing about Trump's amnesty at a certain point. If he were to do the same thing, like give amnesty to government employees that worked under him, that's a scam. You really can't do that. Right? It's unfortunate, but you can't. I mean, it's dumb, but now, again, if you give it to 1 or 2 people, that's not a problem. But you give it to 40 people, 50 people, then the court would see a problem because you're removing checks and balances. Right? So the agents are not only protected from losing their job for doing their job, they're also protected, they have immunity from something completely separate. It's the same way the president has immunity. So now you're on the other side of the thing. And in fact, a lot of what you probably legislated in the Trump case will affect somewhat any agent case. So I will tell you, you probably don't have enough time left in government to do what you want to do, and I don't even think there's anything that you're going to be able to do. Right. Agents can commit crimes. I mean, it's real. Agents can commit crimes as long as they can tie it to a valid process. Not that I believe they went that far over the line. They may have, but even like fruit from a poisonous tree, that's not a crime. It shouldn't be done, but it's not a crime. You could probably get money out of fruit from a poisonous tree, but you're not going to sue the agent. You'll sue the government if it affected your life. They're protected. They have amnesty. What can I say? It's what I've been up against all these years. Because you can see how they do this. They pay all these people. And what it is everybody's sworn to secrecy. So, nothing happened. So you could be like the Attorney General. What's going on with Moore over there? Oh, well, we already investigated. They said nothing happened. And they don't give a shit who you are. They say, well, we were sworn to secrecy. No, we're not allowed to say anything. They won't tell you that when they're duping you. Right. But once you, well, 6 months ago we asked him this question, we just spoke with so-and-so, and he said it's happening. And they'll say, well, we couldn't speak to you, we still can, and we're sworn to secrecy. That's how they play it, man. The biggest scam on earth. They'll tell you bold-faced lies and tell you they're protected from false statements because they're sworn to secrecy. Well, the way the nation goes, they just got to wait 4 years and then it flips, right? They're doing that. I mean, God's doing it a little bit. Because some of you, if a president's corrupt and he sits in 8 years, his people's corrupt and he sits in 8 years, it's a lot more difficult to get it. It's easier to do it in 8 years than 4. You only have 4 years. You're not going to be able to do what you want. I'm just telling you. They'll tie it up in court. The immunity argument, you can see how long that takes, right? Right. It'll be the same thing. It'll probably even take longer because it's a large number of people. Right. And you already fired them. So they'll start with that at the same time that they, say they have immunity. But again, they can't start their case until you charge them, because they'll say there's no standing. Unless they want to argue that they have a right to privacy and you're maliciously investigating them. It's not a very successful venture, because I think somebody tried that before and the court said I don't know if there's anything we can do, Right. You have very little standing in that. But once you prosecute them, they have standing. And then it's got to go all the way to the Supreme Court. All right. You only got 4 years. I doubt you're going to. I mean, come on. You're listening to Laura Loomer. I doubt you're going to make it. All right. And in 2 years, there's a possibility of you all being a lame duck. Well, I don't think one of the things that you're banking on is the fact that you're going to do the new census. Right. And you're not going to count anybody that's an immigrant. You're going to have to prove all the way up to the Supreme Court that the intention of that census was not to count immigrants. And I don't think that can be said. You might have a case on illegal immigration, but not, ruling out all immigrants. But again, I don't know. Well, because when the census began, illegal immigration wasn't such a big deal. But again, one of your ploys in Texas to stop the Democrats from taking over was to offend every Democrat in the state. But what you did is you started shifting populations. People are still leaving Texas and going back to California. So what you're going to do there is, you're shifting it. They're going to have larger representation. People are going to leave. Texas is getting too hot. They won't say it, but it's nasty in the summer. Right. Oklahoma's hot. It's hot here. I was right to try to go to Fargo when I was living in Texas before COVID, but I couldn't. They were willing me down. I couldn't see. Right. I should have moved to North Dakota. I never would have moved again, probably. Right. Correct. That's a spiritual thing that I'm oracling when you hear me say correct. Yes, it's like you may hear it in your mind if you're a seer. I don't hear it in my mind too well, so I speak it. Or hear something, or receive an inference. Inference doesn't necessarily have a voice. Seeds of thought is what I sometimes call it, and things like that. So you have a right to audit the programs. That's what I'm trying to say. They're complaining about hardworking people. You enter the country and you enter into a contract when you apply for amnesty. And that contract says, this is the date you leave unless something changes. Right. Now, for the ones that had time left on their case, the government's not required to cancel it while you're at home. To say that you're not going to, because they have a right to audit the program. Because the only person that said you could say wasn't, I don't believe it was a judge. No, it wasn't a judge for all these people. It's just a average Joe government employee whose job is to screen your cases. But if the government sees that 90-something% of these cases aren't passing muster for amnesty, then there's no reason not to audit it. And they have an obligation to audit it. Because that's part of what's clogging the system up. If 90% of the cases aren't passing, then many of those cases shouldn't be there. There's no way that there's that much error in the initial, or there's no way there should be that amount of error in the initial interview. Right. Here's an example. If you enter the United States not where you're supposed to enter, which the judge says that's okay, you have to give them an interview, it doesn't mean that you don't take that into consideration. If you were to go to the point of entry and apply, it's different than just walking in an illegal location or a non-regulated location. Well, because, again, the inference is that you were trying to thwart the immigration process. They still have to give you an interview. But the interview, if he's an investigator, which he should be, or she's an investigator, which she should be, she should ask you certain questions to figure out. Again, it could be it doesn't mean that it's a gentleman's interview just because you're applying for amnesty. They may sweat you, and they should sweat you, to find out if you were just scamming them about wanting amnesty. Right. Again, not everybody. Some people maybe have a legitimate case. Like I said, we have people that help us in Mexico. And sometimes when it's not as bad today, I don't think, and at least it's not publicized as much. When the cartel figures it out, they have to come up here. And they have automatic amnesty process. Because the DEA says, yeah, that's our person. Right. So again, they have to figure out whether you were planning to file amnesty or you were planning to rip us off. Right. I just can't, if you got, because you got caught in Texas, you applied for amnesty, but if you made it to Detroit, you never would have applied for amnesty. And again, that's, when you see the breadth of the cases, you know that this person here, if they were caught in Texas, would have probably, applied for amnesty to get further. But since they weren't stopped, they spent 2 to 5 to 10 years in Detroit. Right. So they might have known, obviously they knew before people came in to the courtroom that they were going to pull the amnesty process from them. Right. In fact, some of what's happening in the news will validate what they're doing. Because if they try to pull you over on the street, if they go to your house, anything could happen. A barricade situation, right? You run, you get hit by a car. Right? But if they go and they get you in the courtroom, it goes easier. They got to get you out of there as quick as possible because there's a bunch of people. I don't even know if those people are allowed to loiter like that, but essentially, here's the point. If you were in a federal courthouse, like that New York court, I guess it's a New York courthouse or some federal building or something that they show in the news all the time. If that was a federal courthouse, the judges would have a fit. They'd be ruling all sorts of stuff against the people that were causing the disruption. Like, you can't stand in the way of these people. Right? You're not allowed to scream at them while they're detaining someone. Courthouses and courtrooms require a certain decorum because it's an immigration courtroom and immigration courthouse, like a federal building or something like that. They're acting like it's not a courtroom; it's a courtroom. You're allowed in a courthouse. You're allowed to say if you speak out while I'm detaining this person in a manner that's disruptive. Which, again, I don't know why they're even speaking to you. If they're a family member, that's understood. But like just somebody that's part of We Save Fake Amnesty Cases International, they're not supposed to be there. They're not supposed to bother you. Because they're there to disrupt the court process. That's part of the detention is part of the court process. Being a marshal, I've detained people plenty of times. I don't know what I'd do if they started yelling at me, to tell you the truth. Wait, what? Who are you? Who you work for? Thanks, sorry. Who told me? A judge would be like, who told you to speak? Correct. Where you messed up is your courtrooms don't have an exit out the back. Right. You have to take them out the front of the courtroom. Right. There should be a hallway behind your courtroom where you can take these people. Now you might actually have a judicial courtroom. I mean, judicial space there. I don't know. But usually there's judicial space, and then we have like a small area, a cell block area, and then like most people do, and then an elevator to take them somewhere, wherever we need to take them. There's judges that would say that. Who told you to speak? Or who gave you permission to speak? Right. But even the hallways of a courthouse have a requirement for decorum. We had Liddy Jones in there. One of the last cases I did simultaneously was a Liddy Jones, I guess civil case or something. Was it criminal? I can't even remember. Did something with Liddy Jones in there. And, they would, they knew there was a limit. They would ask him questions, but quietly, and, they wouldn't gang up. They'd get thrown out of the courthouse if they ganged up on Liddy Jones or anyone else. Am I saying that right? I think Liddy Jones may have been the heroin dealer. Wait a minute. Let me find that name. I think it's Liddy. It's like skipping my memory. I think it's the guy with Nixon. Was that Liddy? Oh, G. Gordon Liddy. Liddy Jones is a heroin dealer. Yeah, G. Gordon Liddy. They ganged up on G. Gordon Liddy. Liddy Jones was a heroin dealer. A pretty big one, too, with that. And then I think he sexually assaulted somebody. That was like, I may have even been a informant or something like that. I can't remember for sure. Were they wearing a wire? I can't even remember if somebody was wearing a wire. I know in that case somebody was wearing a wire, and the agents had to bust in on him. Now, he caught a big charge and caught, I think, the rest of his life in prison. But he'd been going for decades on and off, getting arrested. He was like one of the original Baltimore heroin men. I wouldn't say original, but, older than the majority of them. Yeah, Baltimore is one of those places that had heroin, before heroin was heroin, you know. Again, once upon a time, it only affected, you know, ghetto and all that kind of thing. And it was one of the ghetto areas, I guess, urban plight, they call it today. And we had the heroin, and predominantly people of color. Right. So again, to recap, the agents have immunity on top of the protections you're trying to. I mean, the Supreme Court knows you're trying to circumvent the protections of government employees. But again, they can only rule what they can rule on in the way they can rule. As far as criminal charge, that's the next step. The first is, do they have a right to retain their job? The second part is, do you have a right to criminally prosecute? And there's less opportunity to criminally prosecute than fire. Right. Because they have immunity. Otherwise, the system wouldn't work. And in fact, what you're doing is dangerous for the system. Because, you know, they know that this thing could reverse the Democratic Party. So you're not going to get a lot of go-getter from people that, other than, you know, maybe some MAGA faithful, really don't think through the process. Right. Well, because obviously the Democrats will take over at some point and can do the same exact thing. So what you're doing is you're stifling motivation within the investigative ranks. Again, some would say, you know, are they trying to kill investigations in this country? Again, I can't judge that because I don't have all the evidence or even witness it because I'm not there. But that's one of the inferences that might be drawn. And one of the charges, or not necessarily charges, but in the case, they may say they're trying to kill investigation of crimes and checks and balances. And so again, you know, this stuff, statute of limitations is 5 years. And the longer you go, the longer they have to investigate it and start the prosecution. Like Donald Trump doesn't nothing to worry about. He's going to be like Biden. He's too old to prosecute. If he lives that long. I don't know, everybody's saying he's got health problems. Alex Jones is now saying that Trump has health problems. It's going to end his presidency or something. Right. And then amnesty cases, you know, they don't have to allow you to go to the fruition in your amnesty case. And some of the cases, again, you're just here working, but you were supposed to leave 2-3 years ago. There's no idea that you're working so you don't have to obey the visa rules. And again, so these cases are like looking at these people and going, well, Biden, you know, Biden was in there. I don't know what you're doing. Well, either he wouldn't give you an extension or you didn't apply. Right. So a lot of these people were destined to leave the country under Biden. Like, you know, the people who came in 2020, their amnesty stuff and the visas were running out like in 2023 and 2024. Right. Again, you know, it's unacceptable that 90-something%, you know, if the U.S. attorney had that level of prosecution failure, like let's say it's just 90% of prosecution failure, the judges would be livid. They're wasting their time. Right. So again, if there's a 90-something%, even a 90% failure of amnesty process, obviously the scrutiny isn't well enough. You know, some of, again, 40%, okay, you know, maybe you just can't tell from the beginning of the process. But not 90-something%. I think it's like 96 to 98%. So again, whoever and I'm sure it was the Biden administration, whoever put that standard out there really screwed you people if you really are harmed by having to go home. Like if it would have been better for you, would it have been better for you not even to be here? Again, that's kind of, I guess, the inference. They should be like, well, you got me. It was a good run. Right. Which Marshall's run into a lot of times. Or like some people fight, but some people go, oh, you got me. Yeah, it was a good run, buddy. Let's go. Right. But they use that shit against me. It's like so disgusting. Oh, he's fleeing. He's fleeing Kansas investigation. An awful flag to avoid investigation. I mean, this is the shit. This is really what they're doing and what they're inferring. They're pieces of shit. None of it's an investigation. It's a hack job. It's a criminal enterprise. It's organized crime, racketeering. Well, but that's the point. It's a contract. When you enter the United States and you get that date or whatever it is, that visa, whatever it is, that date is a contract. You agreed to depart the United States on that date. If you don't adhere to that contract, then you've really broken the law. Right. In reality, it would have been better. I don't know what they were doing for sure. I don't know if I'm going to say to do it, but it would have been better actually to leave the country and come back in if they wouldn't give you an extension. They probably would have just waved you on. Like if you came in the beginning of the Biden administration, 2021, about 2023, you leave and you come back and he gives you another couple of years or whatever it is. So they're acting like, but they're working. But that's like they steal a car and they go, but they have a job and they pay taxes. I mean, really, it's along those lines. I know it's a little bit different, but that's what the argument that you're actually making, all of you. I thought we were, nah, come on, that's breaking the law. Right. If you apply for an extension or you leave the country and come back in, it's a little different. Right. But if it says get out of here October 2023 and you're still here, then there's no hope for you. Well, but ICE never said we're going to go after only people that break the criminal law, or have another criminal charge or law or violation or whatever, because they never said we're going to stop being immigration, we're going to stop being ICE, we're going to stop the process, and anybody that wants to come here that has no criminal conviction can stay here forever. Like Peter Pan or something. Peter Pan of immigration. Forever, forever immigration land. So again, they even did enforce some of that under Biden. Well, it's a mess. They have to. Again, the way I explained it, because nobody was getting it, that you have to balance how many were coming in versus how many are. Like if Trump would deport 0, he'd still be beating Biden in deportations when you figure how many are coming in, unless they got around us. So always look to see if they got around us. Right. But again, it looks like vegetables are getting expensive, so they didn't get around it. And you need to do something about that. So ICE never said that they wouldn't continue enforcing the immigration law. And again, it makes sense to audit that and get it taken care of now. Because if it works the way it's supposed to work, unless Laura Loomer screws it up, at a certain point, when your tomato is no longer, $2 a pound and it's $5 a pound, or prior to that, hopefully, they'll start bringing some visas out. Because, like I said, you don't want the $10 tomato. One tomato, $10. One tomato thing worth half a pound. Right. The United States, the saladless nation. We used to eat salads. We don't have salads anymore. And Trump doesn't eat salads anyway. He's probably a meat and potatoes man. You don't care. The hell with salads. Where's the tomato on my burger? There's no tomatoes left, Mr. President. So again, we need to monitor all of that. Well, the only thing that will be outside of what they said is that they are revoking the amnesty applications because they don't make sense. Again, they look at it, I'm only making $5 an hour here in Guatemala. I need to feed my family. I need $10 an hour or $20 an hour, whatever they say. And I'm not saying they said it like that, but that's generally a lot of them. And you don't get amnesty for that. So there's no reason for them to stay through the process. What they needed was a work visa. Right. And there's no work visas because they're doing that scumbagging of the process by just walking up to the border, right, and saying, I promise to vote Democrat. Just let me in. Right. So once we fix the process, and you have to be, again, you can't go the other way and not fix the process when you need visas. You have to fix the process, or you're going to leave it open for illegal immigration at a certain point. Because again, if a farmer in the United States is paying $20 an hour now, or I don't know, $10 an hour, $15, I don't know what they're paying. But, if they start paying $40 an hour, somebody's going to take that chance. All right. But again, your burger's probably going to be an extra $1 for the piece of tomato on it. Burger King will be like, I don't even know what the cost now, but $6 for the burger, and then actually, if you want a piece of tomato and the lettuce on there, the lettuce is another $1, the tomato is another $1. But you can have a saladless sandwich a lot cheaper. So again, you need to again, the media screams about stuff and it doesn't manifest, so I can't tell you whether it's going to manifest or not. But they've already noticed a 38% increase in vegetable prices. I don't know what level that is and where that is. So at this point, you have to begin addressing it, if that's true. Oh, they'll hate you. You screw somebody's salad up, they'll hate you. Or, all of a sudden the burgers go up. Why is it so expensive? Because $1 for the tomato, $1 for the lettuce. And we're thinking of raising the special sauce because there's pickle in there. Actually, got tomato in there too. Right. So, you know, you better tell the president Burger King's going up, or McDonald's, whatever he eats, maybe both. Thanks, Larry. So the process is as valid as it is valid. If they're going over, then they're going over. I don't know what they're doing. But again, the way the amnesty program is running, they're not wrong for yanking people out and saying, that's it, shut it down. You're not going to get it. We know you're not going to get it. Right. Well, essentially, let's say it's just like an IG inspection, just a standard inspection of the government. And they go into an office and they look at the amnesty program. The IG would require it to be audited and fixed. If the IG came in and said, you know, if it was real, he said, you got a 90% failure rate on these amnesty applications. You're doing something wrong. Right. Because the system wasn't made to be that. It's obvious. And again, Homan spoke about it, and he was saying, you know, quality of life issues are not what amnesty was made for. I mean, yes, if you are seriously oppressed beyond everybody else and you're having a quality of life issue because you are being singled out, because you're a Hmong instead of Chinese or something like that, then yeah. Again, I might be at odds with the administration on that, but that's, you know, a lot of the cases aren't that. Right. Well, again, the idea is this: how much did Biden spend? How much did he make off it? How much did the other Democrats make off it? But let's get away from that and just say, how much did we spend on that, and how much could we have sent to your nation of origin to actually fix the problem there, instead of having you do this and mess up our immigration system? Right. But the money doesn't exist anymore. It's already spent. Right. Yeah, colossal waste of money. Hey, my treadmill agrees with it. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.